We're a bankruptcy attorney joining us in the studio now. Michael Jankins is here, and we just got done talking in the news. Everything seems to be taxes. There's people getting ready to start preparing their taxes already. And what can bankruptcy do for folks when it comes to taxes?
Well, for the people that are fortunate to get a refund, they don't have to worry about any tax problems, but there's a lot of people that don't get a refund and they owe the government. And so it's important that they sort of plan for the fact that they're going to owe taxes. The greatest share of people that end up owing income tax are those that are self-employed, run businesses, or are paid as independent contractors where someone's not taking the taxes out for them. And so they're expected to save it up throughout the year, and they're supposed to pay quarterly tax payments. And then the other people that usually get hit really hard for taxes are when someone loses their job, they'll cash out their retirement program, their 401k plan, and then they owe taxes. Some taxes are taken out, but not nearly enough.
Really?
Those that take out a lot, if they're taking 30 or 40,000, they're going to be in trouble if they don't plan and take extra out after they get their check. Somebody that's just getting $2,000 or $3,000, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. And so people need to plan for that. And a lot of people are fearful that when they come to see me, they have tax debt, and they wonder, can that go away? Their notion is it can't. And actually, there's certain tax debt that can go away.
Really?
It just has to be old enough, and there's stipulations and conditions. But
what is old enough?
well, and it's not really that old. They have to have been due for at least 3 years. So, and they have to have filed their tax return on time. Or at least filed it. It doesn't have to be on time. They have to file the return. And then once they file the return, after 3 years have gone by from then, assuming they did it when it was supposed to have, then the tax will be eligible that it could go away in a bankruptcy or get discharged.
Really? Now, is there a limit as to how much the tax burden is or not?
No, I mean, I've had clients who have gotten rid of over $100,000 of income tax debt. And so...
Wow.
Do you find people pursue bankruptcy if they do get in trouble with their taxes? Like they're hit saying, hey, you owe us $100,000. It's like, I can't pay that. I need to file for bankruptcy? Or it just kind of goes along with someone that's already planning on filing?
Both. I mean, some people, it's been hanging around for a while, and you know, they're self-employed, and once you start owing and you get behind the 8 ball, year after year, you just probably keep owing because they don't learn to send in taxes throughout the year. And when they're owing that kind of money, their business is doing well. I mean, you only pay taxes when you're self-employed if you're making money. And with all the write-offs and everything on tax returns, I mean, you're doing well if you owe taxes at the end of the year or have an obligation. But the people that are doing well are living large, and instead of figuring, well, I'm going to have to pay some within taxes, they go buy things instead, and that's not really a good way to go.
I was going to say, is it just needing better advice on how to handle their money, or is it actually just coming for help and needing you as well?
Well, probably discipline. I mean, when people are self-employed, they have to be disciplined. Besides running a business or being a salesperson or whatever, you have to understand and know. I mean, it's a knowledge type thing, and people sometimes just aren't told. And but year after year when they owe, you'd think they'd figure it out, but they don't.
They don't.
I'm surprised that people could owe for 3 years or more and still not have the IRS crack down on them.
Well, you know, that's kind of a funny thing. I've been doing this a really long time, and 20 years ago, they had a lot. I think they had a lot more revenue agents and a lot more staff to be able to pursue it. But I think that their budgets are such now that there's a lot of staff that they just don't have funding for, and so I don't think they have the capabilities to collect the way they used to.
Yeah, we did a story on this, that they're saying things, you know, if you're expecting your refund quicker or anything like that, to wait this year because they just don't have the staffing to handle issues.
Yeah, and then sometimes people file their taxes late. So if they're more than 3 years old, and they were owing, but they filed like 3 or 4 years at once, and they were all more than 3 years old, so they would have been eligible to get rid of in bankruptcy. Now the next thing is those could go away even though they're late, but the IRS has to have had those returns for at least 2 years.
So you have to wait on top of, besides being late when you turned them in, you got to wait an additional 2 years.
Right. So if someone goes and files all their taxes right now for the years 2008, 9, and 10, those would have all been eligible for discharge if they filed on time. So if they instead file those in 2012, those it'll be 2 years since then. In April of 2014,
okay.
Well, any 2-year period going by, they could get rid of those taxes. So.
But you'd have to file bankruptcy to do that.
Right.
As
you
I say,
can only get rid of
what
them
I'm kind of hearing, even if you feel like you're in some trouble, file on time because it'll benefit you in the long run.
You should file your taxes on time, even if you owe, because if you don't, there's all kinds of penalties the IRS charges you. If you don't file your taxes, there's a penalty on the tax that you owe. If you owe and if you file your taxes but you owe and don't pay it, there's another penalty for failure to pay. So they've got like a laundry list of penalties for not filing at all, not filing on time, not paying your tax when due. If you don't pay estimated taxes like you're supposed to, they expect you to pay throughout the year.
Right.
There's another penalty. I think you have to, and I don't know for sure, but I think you have to pay in at least 90% of the tax due.
Wow.
Otherwise, there's a penalty for not doing that. So there's lots of penalties.
Hoop, and another hoop.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of people believe I can't get out of taxes, and they're like shocked when they hear I can. So, you know, it's good for people to know that they're really in trouble for lots of taxes and lots of tax years, that there's hope. They can actually get out of those.
Okay.
And
legally.
Legally.
And legally, too, on top of it. How about that?
Yeah, and now the one problem that can arise is when taxes are owing a long time, the IRS will file a tax lien. They'll file a document in the county recorder's office, and it'll show up against any land. If somebody owns lots of things, that lien is like a secured debt, like a mortgage on your home, so the IRS can take those things to satisfy the debt. So that lien can still be effective even if you're getting rid of the tax, just like a mortgage on a house.
Oh, okay.
But most of the people that come to me with these problems don't own anything, because if they did, the IRS would have taken it
by then.
So the liens usually aren't really all that big of a deal for us, and so taxes can go away, and it's a kind of a good thing. Now, there's some kinds of taxes that self-employed people have, or businesses, that don't go away. There's sales taxes to the state, employment taxes, where as an employer, if you take money out, the money you take out of your employee's paycheck, so when you get paid by the station and they take out your federal tax and your state tax and your Social Security, the employer is supposed to like pay that into the government, you know, for your taxes. Well, a lot of self-employed places end up using the money. They shouldn't. Those are called trust fund taxes, just like sales tax. Trust fund meaning you're being trusted by the government to control the money, to separate it from your other operating funds, so that it's sent into the government. It's not to be used ever. And so because of that, they don't go away.
That one won't go away.
It's almost like stealing money, and that's why they won't go away in a bankruptcy ever. And the only way to lessen the impact of those taxes, and they can become very large, and they grow with interest and penalties, and it can put people out of business by owing that. But there's a procedure with the IRS called an offer and compromise, where there's a lot of rules and stipulations to it, but you can offer up to pay so much of the money, and the IRS will have to make a decision on whether they want to accept it and say, let bygones be bygones, and all the rest is gone. And that's usually when they've determined that there's no hope of getting the rest of the money over the next 5 years. And so
a lot of rules and regulations, but thankfully there's people out there that know what they are.
If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
They can call me at 255-1855, and we'd be happy to answer your questions or schedule a free consultation. Or they can find us on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com.
There
Wonderful.
you go.
Well, thank you, sir. I think we all learned something here today. Wonderful. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, folks. It is 8:52. Totally serious news coming up next.